Silver dragons embody all that is honorable about dragon kind. They protect the weak, heal the wounded, destroy evil, and all of it whilst in the company of their friends and allies who they trust and love above all. If bronze dragons are justice, then silver dragons are goodness. If gold dragons are law, then silver dragons are freedom and happiness. Silver dragons appear as if sculpted from pure metal. In fact, once they grow older, you can barely even see their scales anymore. To a person, they would look as if they were a singular majestic piece of silver, glimmering and radiating in pure splendor. Their mohawk style of frill tells them apart from other types of dragons. In fact, they have the tallest head frill out of any of the true dragons. Their chin spikes look like goatees as well, making their physical look very unique amongst these creatures. When in flight, if looked from below, provided that you had difficulty seeing colors, they would actually look exactly like red dragons. I mean, their wings are very similar, very long and connected to the tail by the base of their legs. They have no special feature on their belly or tail, and their massive horns on their heads would jut out from the side in a very similar fashion to red dragons. For both red and silver dragons, what you can actually use to tell them apart is typically on their head, but on the top side of their head. So if looked from below, as if the dragon was circling you in the night, you might have a very hard time actually telling them apart. The one feature though that makes the silver dragons unique even amongst red dragons are their alar phalanges. A silver dragon has 2 thumbs at the end of the alar bone, whereas the red dragon only has 1. This is how draconic sages tell these 2 dragons apart when dealing especially with highly deteriorated bony skeletons. But before we cover anything else, however, let's jump in straight into what the monster manual tells us about these creatures. The manual tells us that they are the friendliest and the most social out of the metallic dragons, cheerfully assisting good creatures in need. They believe that living a moral life involves doing good deeds and ensuring that one's actions cause no undeserved harm to other sentient beings. They don't actively root out evil, but will gladly defend innocence against evil. The manual also tells us that they enjoy the company of other silver dragons, but outside of their own kind, they also find true friendships in humanoids, who they spend a lot of time with. Typically, they like to be in humanoid form, specifically in a benign shape, and then they have strong friendships with creatures whilst in this form. They tell us here that sometimes silver dragons are forced to leave their friendships behind to tend to their lairs or mate, only to return centuries later and realize that their friends are long dead. Because of this, silver dragons sometimes befriend multiple generations of the same family. This part is huge here. The manual tells us that out of all races, they specifically are more fond of humans and any other short-lived race because they have a particular zest for life that other races simply do not. And lastly, when it comes to treasure and hoards, they enjoy relics of humanoid history, whether it is coinage minted by an old empire or the ruins of a castle or old humanoid objects of great artistic design. When it comes to their lair, we're told that silver dragons make their lairs on secluded cold mountain peaks, especially if the mountain happens to be an abandoned old outpost of civilization, like an old forgotten fortress. I should also point this out before we move on. Under regional effects, it is specified that the silver dragon has the ability to make clouds and fog within its lair as solid as stone, forming structures and other objects as it wishes. That part is really important. So there it is, the silver dragon entry in the monster manual. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and start this video for reals. Let's talk about what the monster manual does not tell you about silver dragons. Let's start with the mentality of the silver dragons, specifically what exactly makes them tick. This is important because many people can fall into the hole of treating silver dragons similarly to bronze or brass dragons. Bronze dragons because they are paragons of justice, and brass dragons because they're very social and talkative, qualities that silver dragons often share. What makes a silver dragon is that they genuinely care about people's happiness and well-being. Unlike the bronze and gold dragons, who are more concerned about their strict ideology of good versus evil and love versus chaos. A bronze dragon, for example, polymorphs into humanoids to test people's good wills, but they don't reward them or make their lives better if they do good. They simply punish the bad people. A gold dragon is constantly on the lookout for evil and will spend years researching and uncovering evil plots in order to thwart them before they even begin. Now, these are very proactive dragons who constantly think about evil and how to defeat it. Silver dragons seldom act proactively. They are more concerned about healing the wounded and saving innocents rather than destroying the evil that might produce those terrible things in the future. They strongly believe that evil will always show itself eventually, and they wait until it does before actually dealing with it. This comes around to the main motto that all silver dragons hold dear in their hearts, which the monster manual does not tell you. The one rule that truly defines them to the core. Quote, "Actions that cause harm is a crime. Actions that causes no harm is one's own business," end quote. Almost by definition, a silver dragon will typically never harm an evil person if that evil person has yet to cause any harm. Now, of course, silver dragons are not stupid and will defeat a clearly evil person if that person clearly intends on doing evil, but these dragons are not concerned with philosophy or the struggles between the general concepts of good and evil. They don't care if you're not actually hurting anybody. Now, when it comes to the differences between brass dragons and silver dragons, it is more just about who these type of dragons enjoy spending time with. A brass dragon converses, that's what it does, and it will do that with literally anybody, whether it is a dragon or a dog or a scorpion, a bird, a human, or a sphinx. These dragons are just so focused on hearing and telling stories that it doesn't really matter who they're dealing with, and of course they can speak with animals, so they always have an abundance of subjects to interact with. A silver dragon, on the other hand, is mostly just focused on humanoids, but it is so attached to humanoids that it becomes empathetically connected with them. It wants to be with humans. It wants to pretend to be a human. It wants to save them, protect them, befriend them. The silver dragon is the closest that we will ever get to a dragon that has the human way of thinking. We're getting pretty deep into silver dragon psychology right now, but I think it is really worth discussing this because it truly showcases how a silver dragon thinks and behaves. Silver dragons in particular suffer from ambition, in the sense that it is very common for them to spend years or even decades meditating and contemplating a problem rather than simply solving the problem. Once again, they are the complete opposite of proactive. Now, this is an issue that, typically most dragons have, since dragons get to live for thousands of years. They truly are in no hurry to accomplish most of anything in their immediate future. But what makes silver dragons different from other dragons in this regard is that they truly wish that this wasn't so, and they try and do their best to be as active as they can, which is why they admire humans so much and why they surround themselves with them. Humans typically force silver dragons to action, which they love. Now, the Monster Manual does tell you about their love for humanoids, and you don't really need them to tell you about how much they hate other dragons, like for example the red dragon. You can probably guess that yourself. We also covered this on our last video when we talked about red dragons, but silver dragons and red dragons both typically lair on the same locations, which are very high mountains. Because of this, they fight all the time, though silver dragons typically actually win these encounters. This is because silver dragons very commonly will gather the support from adventurers in slaying these red dragons. Now, you can also make the very smart deduction that silver dragons and white dragons tend to lair in very similar locations. This is because silver dragons tend to nest so high up that it is typically always snowy peaks. They also very much prefer colder climates like white dragons do. But when a white dragon notices the presence of a silver dragon in their territory, they will almost always leave. White dragons know that a silver dragon would royally kick their asses, so they don't even chance it. What you probably didn't know though, and what the monster manual does not tell you, is that silver dragons actually don't like gold dragons that much. Silver dragons have a strong dislike for strict hierarchies, and gold dragons, well, they are all about imperialism and law. Gold dragons believe in a world ruled by them, with regulations and justice, whereas silver dragons, even though they are certainly lawful, they prefer a world with freedoms, where people can do whatever they want, as long as they're not harming anybody. See, the monster manual doesn't cover this at all, but silver dragons actually have a very simple hierarchy of their own, which is actually sort of similar to that of blue dragons. Silvers always have a loosely knit family or clan with a matriarch or a patriarch who they will call the senior. Now, these communities are typically spread very far apart, and for the most part, you would expect them to be around maybe 10 to 20 silver dragons in number, but they will be so spread out that they will usually cover an entire continent. They help each other in whatever ways they can, and when one asks for help, the others will typically accept. But normally a silver dragon might not interact with his clan for years or even decades. The senior of the clan will give advice, settle disputes, and coordinate any actions that the clan might take as a group. This, of course, would include the very unfortunate incident when dispensing the law amongst their own clan would be needed, though this is very rare since silver dragons only have their one rule, which we discussed before. Silver dragons believe from their very core that living a moral life simply involves doing good deeds and taking no actions that brings undeserved harm to other beings, so very rarely would dispensing justice within their own actually happen. Now, mating is particularly interesting. See, the monster manual doesn't tell you, but courtship and mating within your clan is a very serious taboo. You're expected to find a silver dragon from a different clan to woo, a process which is very civilized and decorous. When two silver dragons decide to mate, they will then ask the seniors of both clans for approval, though this process is largely ceremonial, just like for blue dragons. You will typically never see any senior actually decline a mating process unless there was a very serious reason not to, like for example if the two silver dragons were from the same clan. Now, generally silver dragons mate for life, and when they do, the younger of the two dragons, or the one with the least status, will leave their clan in order to join their mates. This is not always the case, but it is typically what happens. Now, you will find it very interesting that silver dragons alongside gold dragons are the only type of dragon that actually marries. I want to take a small moment here to really nail in the difference here, because you probably have heard me say multiple times during these videos that some dragons mate for life and some don't. Typically what I mean by that is that a dragon that mates for life will not seek another mate and will form a bond with their partner, as you would expect. But typically these dragons will each have their own lairs and their own hordes, and for the most part they will not spend a lot of time together other than when their babies are very young and require a lot of attention. When I say that gold dragons and silver dragons marry, I mean it in a very literal sense, meaning that both partners will take an oath and be with each other almost always. This process is called the Oath of Concord, and it is a very sacred draconic tradition. The two dragons bound by the oath are considered, quote, one flesh, one breath, one life, end quote. And when they enter this oath, it cannot be broken for good or for ill. For gold dragons, this oath is forever. For silver dragons, this oath persists for as long as both silver dragon parents have children. So as long as their babies are not older than 101 years old, which would be when a dragon would be considered an adult, then both parents would be bound by the oath. Now, I should say that it is not uncommon for this oath to persist for silver dragon for many centuries, since many silver dragon parents will continue to produce offsprings throughout the centuries, which would keep them under the oath for all that time. Now, the monster manual barely touched on this, but silver dragons do indeed have the ability to mold and harden the clouds themselves. In fact, many silvers actually just straight up live on the clouds and use them as their lair. In any case, even though silver dragons do enjoy crafting the clouds themselves into objects and layers, they actually do not lay their eggs on clouds, neither do they leave their treasure in clouds. This is because a silver dragon wants to protect their eggs and treasure, as you would imagine, and they do most of their protection using traps and enchantments. But traps are easily seen through the semi-transparent lining of the clouds, and enchanting cloud stuff is apparently also particularly difficult, at least harder than simply enchanting stone. So they will bring stone and mortar and construct sections of their lair out of it inside of their already formed cloud castle. So it wouldn't be uncommon to see a silver dragon lair be almost wholly constructed of cloud stuff and have only one room in it made of stone, which of course would be the most important and the most protected room of the lair. A really crucial thing here though, which the monster manual completely omits, is that silver dragons have the legendary special ability to, without any spell or preparation, just straight up walk in clouds. See, when we talk about silver dragon's lair, we're talking about a cloud that has been prepared to be allowed to walk on, like what you would find on a flying cloud giant castle. These are clouds that have been processed and made so that anyone could walk on, an adventurer or anyone else. A silver dragon has the ability to create these, though with a fair amount of work. What I'm talking about now are just straight up, normal, untouched, everyday clouds. These unworked clouds, a silver dragon has the legendary ability to walk on. In fact, it is very clearly stated that a silver dragon can literally walk on fog as well. So if your wizard were to create a fog spell or a stinking cloud spell or anything like that, a silver dragon could literally just use that as a stepping stool, or go into the fog or cloud and step on it inside of it. This is an ability that all silver dragons get, and they get it from the moment they are born. Silver dragons are fairly emotional creatures. I mean, the reason that they are so justice-driven is really only because they hate to see people get hurt, which of course is the centerpiece of their one rule of not harming people that don't deserve it. But you can also see it in the fact that they are willing to marry other dragons that they mate with, and how they befriend humans basically for their entire lives. Even the monster manual says that they go and befriend entire generations of humanoids just because they are so attached. What the monster manual doesn't tell you is that silver dragons are virtually the only dragon that trusts humanoids so much that they're actually willing to let them guard their treasure hoards while they are away. If you befriend a silver dragon, now that is a true friendship, and one that will last all of your life. These are just different kinds of dragons than what you're used to, at least from every other video that I have made on these creatures. In fact, let me tell you this, which the monster manual also doesn't tell you. A silver dragon actually prefers the humanoid body over its draconic body. The big dragon body is cumbersome, is thick, and it gets in the way, whereas the humanoid body is perfectly designed to enjoy the luxuries of humanoid society that draconic society simply lacks. Let me give you an example. Silver dragons enjoy the full spectrum of omnivore diets. They hate to repeat meals, and they typically always want to vary what they're eating. A red dragon, for example, basically only eats fresh meat all day, every day. A brass dragon basically eats only plants, and very sparingly. A silver dragon wouldn't be able to do any of these. A silver dragon would rather instead have meat and veggies, legumes and wheat. They'd want water one meal and juice the next, maybe milk for the one after that. They'd rather eat spiced roast one meal and chicken pie the next. The level of culinary expertise that humanoids have, dragons simply don't, and it is much easier to enjoy these delicacies as a humanoid rather than as a dragon. The monster manual also doesn't tell you that silver dragons don't have to eat that much. In fact, typically in the wilds, a silver dragon only feeds about 3 to 4 times a month. This is the reason why a silver dragon would actually feel satisfied eating a small humanoid meal, which normally would be very tiny when compared to the enormous meals it would typically have to get for a creature its size. But yeah, silver dragons actually are more than happy to just live as a humanoid, sleep as a humanoid, eat as a humanoid. These bodies simply work better for them. Now, they will still see humanoids as lesser creatures, which in turn comes from the draconic brain of the silver dragon. I mean, all dragons are vain, that's just a fact, and one cannot escape from that fact. But silver dragons love them regardless, and many actually feel it is their duty to help them because they are so lesser. Lastly, let's talk about their favorite treasure, though there really isn't much to talk about here. The summary of it really is that silver dragons just love humanoids, and they would want to get anything that is humanoid made. Of course, the more artisanal and well-crafted it is, the better. But that's generally it. Their favorite style of treasure, which the monster manual doesn't really mention, is a type of treasure that can be carried. Silver dragons spend the vast majority of their time, and I mean probably 80 to 90% of their time, outside of their lair, so they want treasure that can be carried. You would probably be better off giving a silver dragon jewelry that it can use and carry with it, or fancy clothes or some nice shoes, but the best gift might just straight up be a watch. A watch is the epitome of human ingenuity. A well-crafted one is gorgeous too, but most of all, it shows the true strength of humanoids, which is their importance on time. Now, so far you might think that silver dragons are the best, just straight up perfect dragons, and I honestly think that for the most part they are. They are probably the one dragon that you could have polymorphed as a human or humanoid who would actually join an adventurer party and just have a good time. They wouldn't be as chaotic as copper dragons would be, or as overbearing and demanding as gold or bronze dragons would be. They wouldn't be obnoxious as a brass dragon would be. Silver dragons would fit just right in. They would want to quest, save the world, and make some good friendships along the way. But silver dragons do have one weakness, or rather, well, every dragon has this one weakness. Whatever you might think of a metallic dragon and how perfect it might be or how good it is, all of that dissolves when it meets a chromatic dragon, like a curse in their blood or a commandment from their god. All metallic dragons go berserk when they find a chromatic, and they battle to the death. Let me just end with this quote. Quote, "With few exceptions, a metallic dragon's rational persona disappears when it spots a chromatic dragon. It engages the dragon on sight, regardless of the consequences to itself or others. If the chromatic dragon is too daunting for one metallic dragon to handle, the metallic immediately seeks out allies and returns with greater numbers to assail the threat. When battle is joined, metallic dragons fight savagely, eviscerating bellies, gouging eyes, and hamstringing legs. They slaughter chromatic dragon males, females, and wormlings without prejudice. After the slaughter ends, a metallic dragon resumes its normal personality as if nothing unusual had transpired, despite being covered in blood and gore. Once, when asked about his astonishing outburst of wrath, a silver dragon replied, quote, "They cannot be allowed to reach critical numbers." End quote. Despite their drive to kill, most metallic dragons do not crusade against chromatic dragons. They merely deal with such worms as they appear. I would like to personally thank my Patreon supporters Rucato Fan, Major Fail Gaming, Wyatt Curlin, Barry Maskant, Toby Oliver, Dylan Baker, Zach Bowell, Spencer Boeck, Casey Butler, and Meaty Ogre at best for supporting me on Patreon at the $25 level. If you would like to support me as well, then please head on over to patreon.com/MrRhexx to support. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being awesome. Your comments have been so nice. You guys have been giving me so much good feedback on this series. I honestly love it. If you guys want to follow me and just keep an eye out on me, make sure to follow me on Twitter. Be sure to leave a comment down there and give me a like if you liked the video, a dislike, of course, if you didn't like it. And also, if you guys play Dungeons & Dragons through the internet and want access to some fun animated spell effects for you to use in your games, then make sure to check these out on Roll20. They're called Animated Spells Volume 1, and once downloaded, you can simply drag and drop them on your game for some animated goodness. A good friend of mine made them and they are incredible, so go and give him some love if you guys feel like upping your map design a bit. The link will be, of course, in the description. Once again, thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure to click on the playlist to watch all of the D&D videos that I have made. I promise you, they are all good. You will enjoy yourself. In any case, see you all on the next video. Bye-bye.